I'm Anne Kennedy and I've worked in Early Childhood Australia's professional learning program since 2010. Joining me today for this Talking About Practice interview is Michelle. Hi Michelle.
Hi Anne, I'm Michelle and I'm the manager of the children's program at Gowrie, Victoria in Docklands.
In this conversation we're going to be talking about self-assessment and how that can support a centre's development of their quality improvement plan. Michelle, can I ask you, what does self-assessment mean to you?
Yeah, I think self-assessment is about reflecting and thinking about all aspects of practice. It's also, the process is about engaging with all people that are involved in the community. So your children, your educators, your families, the broader community. So there's so many people involved in the service, and it's about sitting down and thinking and talking to those people.
Can you tell us, as the centre manager, how you support your educators to engage in self-assessment?
I think the first and foremost that we need to provide educators with time to think. I think that's a common thing in the field that we say we don't have time, but you know, it's about making the time. It's a really important part of our work, and this can happen in a great range, also in a great range of ways. Like it happens in the car on the way to work or home or at lunchtime. It could happen in the moment. They say that educators make over 800 decisions a day. So, you know, that reflecting on the moment and in the moment is happening all the time. But I think it's really important to provide opportunities for educators and the time and the space to think and reflect individually and also in groups. So at Gowrie, Victoria, what we do is we have different opportunities for our staff in smaller groups. So in briefing sessions within their room, we encourage them that at least at a minimum weekly that they provide an opportunity that they can engage in the people that they work day to day with. And also we reflect with the larger leadership group. So with the management and the leaders of each one of those rooms, we sit down and we have, you know, time over a lunchtime that we come together for an hour and we pose questions and we think about our practice in relation to the National Quality Standard, and we have some really great discussions from that.
Well, this might be a good chance to look at a video clip which shows one of the leadership team meetings at Gowrie Docklands.
So it's great to have your input today in the quality improvement plan and the framework in which we practice with. So today we are going to do a reflection around orientation and how that looks here currently at Gowrie and how we can improve that for families and children. I suppose firstly if we maybe can talk about how orientation, you know, what is your interpretation of orientation and how do you see that works for families and children and educators?
It depends on who is in the room at the time. So like if you have a family from the one room where a staff member was also prior in that room, you know, like it works quite well because then they have that attachment to go to straight away. You know, that bond has already been formed and, you know, familiarity, all of that, you know, that sort of helps. But when you haven't met the family or the family haven't met the staff before, ever, you know, that makes it that little bit harder.
I think certainly that when we introduce new families into the service and they choose us as the service of choice, that we're not only orientating the child, that we actually have to view it in the context of the family and meeting the needs of the family. Because quite often in management roles we have conversations supporting the families with their anxieties, why supporting you with, you know, orientating that new child into the programs.
Whilst we have our policies and procedures in place and we have a system as to what we would like to see for orientation, it looks very different for every family. And I suppose the question I would like to pose to you today is, whilst, you know, we feel that we have orientation for children, to settle the children and the families in, you know, the orientation that happens when children move rooms, you know, talk to me about what are some of the things that you do to assist families and children settle into the room?
What worked well for us last year was I knew a lot of families from prior so what Carly was saying, that worked really well. But because we had two new members of staff to the room, I think we all had the same, we all had that evening thing. But that worked really well for inviting all the parents in the evening, for them to meet us on a one-to-one. And then what we did is we broke it up. The three of us took different little areas that we all spoke about, especially with the transition from the toddler room to the kinder room, the expectations are different, and you know, the children's independence and things. So we were able to say to them, these are our expectations of what we would expect when your child comes into the room, and you know, what concerns have you got, or what are you expecting from us? And it was worked really well, didn't it, Becky?
Mm-hmm. So what do you see as the differences? Like, what sort of things say that when you transition children between rooms? Now, I know that most of the internal transitions would happen from the 0 to 3 to the 3 to 5 room. But I know there have been times where children, for meeting the needs of families, may need extra days, or have made a request to move a room for many different reasons. It might, you know, one of the reasons might be there's a new sibling start and they want the siblings together. So you might still have those transitions from 0 to 3 room, but the majority are from 0 to 3 to 3 to 5. So what sort of things identify to you that you feel a really high important need to talk to families about as they orientate?
I think one of my families from my room, they were just nervous about the staff because they hadn't met the staff or the leader of the room. So when I took her over and I introduced her to the room and the staff in the room, and then she was like, okay, right, because she was really nervous about going there, and I could just tell by looking at her. So
it's that
gap
worked. We do a lot of effort with orientating the child when it comes to swapping rooms, and sometimes the family need that little bit more support. The child already knows us based on the design of the building. So in the orientation process, we need to focus a lot on the family and making sure the family understand the differences between the under 3s program and 3 to 5 program.
And that's a really good observation, Callie. I think that certainly the conversations like that Samantha and I will have up in the office with families might necessarily not be the same conversations that the educators are having with families on orientation. And I think I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think what it's highlighted for me is because of the design of the building, you know, the children are quite settled. You really can walk around at any time of the day, see that they're really settled. You know, I know I made some comments about some of the new children that have transitioned into room 7 and how well they have settled. You know, how calm it is, how engaged they are in the program, the relationships, the thought that was given to move up friendship groups as well together at the same time. But I suppose the work that Samantha and I will do with families as they're exiting the centre for the day and catch up with them and, hey, how you going, is it's highlighting that the connection of the family to the educators may be some work that we could look at to extend on our quality improvement plan.
So Michelle, can you tell us why the leadership team meeting that we just saw in the clip was focusing on transition and orientation matters?
Yeah, we've had some discussion lately, as you would have watched in the clip. You know, we have this fantastic, unique environment that we have. The way that the building is designed, it is we have a total indoor-outdoor program. We have 9 rooms that engage. The children can go from room to room throughout the day, from about 8:30 till possibly about 5:30 at night. So these children are quite familiar with the environment. They're familiar with the educators. So whilst we have at Gowrie quite a strong orientation process when the families start, and that's tailored to meet those individual needs. When the children may transition from the 0 to 3 up to the 3 to 5 room, there's a gap there for families because, you know, first and foremost, we look at the way that the child is settling into the environment, and there is very minimal disruption. Like, there's very minimal challenging behaviours, very minimal children that are upset. So those types of behaviours that may present in orientation and transition really are not evident, you know, day to day with these transitions. But what we have noticed more and more is that for families it can be a little bit of a gap in that whilst the child's settled, it takes the family time, the parents' time, whether it be the grandparents or the auntie and uncle, time to build relationships with the new educators in that room. So we felt that it was a need to actually formalise a transition program for between rooms, even though we had this orientation process.
So as a result of the meeting that we saw in the clip, have you taken specific action?
Yes, we have, yeah. I'd also forgot to mention we'd been speaking to a parent quite in depth about this and what his experience had been like and how we could improve that. So what we actually did was we have since developed a flow chart. Because we have 9 rooms, you know, there's a really big need obviously in the national quality standards for consistency across the service and for educators to be able to articulate those consistent practices. So we are finding in a big service that we do need to have processes very clearly documented with flow charts. So we've started using flow charts. We've developed interview checklists and an interview template where educators can write strategies or the information that's exchanged through that on these templates. So this process is not totally finalised yet because we've put it out now. We've developed this as a result of our meeting, but we've put this back out to the leadership team as well as our other site because we like our processes to be consistent across both of our services. And also, the family that I'd had a lengthy discussion with, we have involved him in this process as well. He's given us some initial feedback on some things that he would like to see on the checklist, like, you know, that the child's photo is on the locker, that there's the hook for, you know, where they will put their coats.
So simple strategies.
Simple things that are really important to that sense of belonging when you are going into a new room.
I think what you're saying is that self-assessment must lead to action. It isn't just about thinking about your practice and doing nothing about it. It does have to have that element of decision making.